Hi, this is our draft showcase by Matthew, Michael, Blessing, and Jasmine. The scope of our project will be using CRISP-DM to analyze the trends of all motor vehicles in New York City between the years of 2012 and 2023. Here we have listed our data source, and we have also listed some characteristics of our data. In the next few slides, you will see several graphs that will depict the illustrations of the data that we chose. These visualizations will explore the trends, and we can make assumptions from these visualizations about the causes and effects of the trends. Here are some terms that will be used throughout our presentation that we feel is important to know. So please take a second to read through these so that you can be well informed. So here's our first graph. Our first graph depicts the years 2012 through 2023. As you can see, from 2019 to 2020, there's a dramatic drop in vehicle collisions. Our guess is that this is due to the pandemic, COVID-19. A lot of people weren't out, which means that the population on the streets were lower, which means that it wasn't as much opportunity to get into vehicle collisions. Here we have that same data. The only difference is that the months of the year are emphasized. As you can see, the February months, which is in the wintertime, all have that dramatic drop in it. So meaning that there was less collisions, and we are assuming that that's because of the wintertime and the bad weather. Either there's not enough people on the roads to have as much collisions, or people are driving safer, making safer decisions. Maybe they're staying off their phone and things like that to keep that collision rate low. And then again, you see that 2019 and 2020 drop due to COVID. So this next visualization shows the collision rate separated by the district. So as you can see, Staten Island is lower, and then Bronx is like on the higher side, and Manhattan is kind of in the middle and everything like that. And then the other is also the location where the collisions happen. So on bridges, on ramps, anything like that. The next chart is similar to the previous one. The only difference is it's more simple. Instead of it being a line graph, it's a bar graph. And you can see the drastic difference between other Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island. So it's better to compare them in this chart. Again, this drastic difference could also be explained by the population difference between. Here are the collisions that are occurring in the non-borough locations, such as bridges, ramps, and tunnels. This would make sense because this is where vehicles are at its highest capacity. Of course, there's going to be less collisions in a pedestrian filled road or something like that. But when you go to bridges and ramps, which is merging onto the highway, and things like that, you're going to get a lot of a lot of traffic, leading to a lot of collisions. Here you have a graph using that same data or related to, but it's showing the factors of the collisions. So what is causing them? As you can see, driver inattention or distraction. This could be someone on their phone or anything like that. That's where it's the highest. It's almost at 400K. And then you see outside factors such as slippery pavement or bad weather or anything like that, which is outside factors that really can't be controlled by the vehicle operator. Those are lowest. So from this chart, we gather that the vehicle operator is at fault for most of the collisions. Here we have a graph that depicts those collisions, but it's by the hour in the day. So as you can see, 3 a.m. is really, no one is on the roads really. It's dark. It's like the earliest of the earliest hour. But then you see 4 p.m. when children get out of school or work is ending or anything like that. When the roads are the busiest, that's when the collisions happen. So that's where you see that peak at the top at 4 p.m. Here's another chart that shows the barrels and the differences of the collision rates. And you see Staten Island is the lowest and the other is the highest. And then it's also by the hour of the crash time. So it's like the chart before it, but it's broken up into the 5 barrels. Here's a chart that depicts the 5 boroughs, but it focuses on who was injured in the collision or the accident. So as you see, most of the time it's the motorist that is the injured one compared to the cyclist or the pedestrian. Here we have the type of person and the time of day when injury occurs. You see that same peak, which showing the morning rush and afternoon rush. Now we're just going to go through the roads with the most collisions. So here is a road that is about 25 miles long. It connects Queens and Brooklyn. So of course this road is going to have a lot of collisions because it connects Queens and Brooklyn, and those are pretty busy areas. The second one is going to be 10 miles long. It connects Manhattan and Bronx. Again, two very busy areas. And here is another road that runs through Manhattan and the Bronx and Exodus, New York City. So, of course, that's going to have a lot of collisions because, number one, it's a long road. It's 33 miles long. And number two, it runs through Manhattan and the Bronx, which is all busy areas. It's a lot of traffic coming through. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of vehicles. There's bound to be a high collision rate. Here we have Atlantic Avenue, which is only 10 miles long, but it's a major roadway in Brooklyn and Queens. And we have our conclusion. So our conclusion is basically that the rate of the collision depends on the population of the area. So collisions are mainly at the fault of the vehicle operator. Like we've seen in the previous chart, outside factors doesn't play as big as a role as distractions or things that are at the operator of the vehicle's fault. So due to there being more people in certain areas, there is automatically going to be more vehicles. Since there's more vehicles, there's more people driving on the street, more people trying to get everywhere, and there's going to be more opportunities for collisions. And it's going to work vice versa as well, because if there's less people in the area, there's going to be less vehicles and there's going to be a lower collision rate. And then we see that this chart here is the population of Staten Island, Queens, Bronx, and Brooklyn, and Manhattan. And as you can see, Bronx, Brooklyn, and Manhattan have pretty big population rates. And as you've seen in the previous slide, they also had the highest vehicle collision rate as well. Staten Island was always lower than everyone else, and that's because they only make up 5.8%. Thank you. This was our draft showcase.